Poems come in all forms and structures. Unlike other works such as essays and short stories, poems are usually written in verse. One of the elements that add beauty to poetry is rhyme. In fact, it is one of two most important structural elements of poetry. According to Henderson, Day and Waller, 1993, rhyme refers to the repetition of certain sounds. This is done to emphasize a particular sound and help unify the poem. Rhyme is a fun element to learn and is useful in teaching poetry. Children usually are exposed to rhyme in nursery rhymes and limericks from a tender age. Basically, rhyme is the repetition of similar sounds. Therefore, introducing learners to rhyme would not be difficult. Click on the links below for examples of worksheets that can be used to teach poetry to secondary school children. Rhythm is another element that adds beauty and structure to poetry. Barnett and Kane define rhythm as stresses at regular intervals in a line. Rhythm also refers to the recurrences of stresses and pauses. Kennedy and Gioia. You can feel the rhythm best when the poem is read aloud. The two elements that help achieve this effect are stress, pause. Click on each element to know more. Stress is the emphasis that is placed on certain syllables, words or phrases. In other words, not all the words in a line are given auditory emphasis. A pause refers to breaks in the movement of verse, particularly at the end of a line. Stress and pauses in poems help create rhythm in a verse. You can mark the stresses and pauses and see the pattern intended by the poet. Usually, the stresses in a line of a poem are marked with a small sloping dash above the accented syllable. Listen and read aloud the two lines again and again until you get sense of the rhythm. Click here to listen to the two lines. Break, break, break on thy cold grey stones, O sea. From Break, Break, Break by Lord Alfred Tennyson. Rhythm is an easy element that can be taught in a fun way. Learners should have an auditory model they can refer to, simply because they may not be able to detect the rhythm by themselves. Examples of the models are songs, poems. The lyrics of a song can be used to teach a rhythm, instructions. Delete the punctuation marks or capital letters at the start of the sentence. Learners listen to the song. Learners place stress marks at the appropriate places. Look at the lyrics of The River by Jimmy Nail. Where do you think the stress marks should be placed? Click the links below for the lyrics of the song and answer to the exercise given. Read the lyrics of Jimmy Nail's The River and place the stress marks appropriately. Here are the lyrics with the slash placed at appropriate places. One of the ways to learn rhythm is to listen to poems that are read aloud. The teacher may demonstrate rhythm by reading a poem aloud. Learners could be trained line by line before they present the poem aloud to their classmates. Instructions: read the following poem aloud and get learners to note the pauses between words or phrases. Learners then read the same poem aloud, focusing on pauses in each line. In pairs or groups, read a poem aloud at a different pace. Example, fast and then slow. Ask if that makes a difference in their understanding of the verses. Click here to view the poem. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime, we would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. From To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell. Tone is the attitude and feeling of a writer towards his subject. Bach and Richardson, 1990. Tone also refers to the overall mood of the poem itself, the pervading atmosphere intended to influence the readers, emotional response, and foster expectations of the conclusion. Glossary of Poetic Terms from Bob's Byway. Tone gives readers clues about how to feel about a poem. Printed poems lack the intonation of spoken words, so you have to learn to hear the tones with your mind's ear. Poems, Wordsworth Handbook and Anthology of C.M. Main and Sang J. Sang. Tone may reflect the poet's voice, which ranges from being ironic, comical, or even nasty. Look at the example that follows. Line 5 to 6 of this first stanza of Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est vividly relays the pain and exhaustion of World War I soldiers. Click on the link below for stanza 1. Tone gives readers clues about how to feel about a poem. Printed poems lack the intonation of spoken words, so you have to learn to hear the tones with your mind's ear. Poems, Wordsworth Handbook and Anthology of C.M. Main and Sang J. Sang. Tone may reflect the poet's voice, which ranges from being ironic, comical, or even nasty. Look at the example that follows. Line 5 to 6 of this first stanza of Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est vividly relays the pain and exhaustion of World War I soldiers. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on bloodshot. All went lame, all blind. Gas, gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, and floundering like a man in fire or lime. From Dulce et Decorum Est, Wilfred Owen. Diction is the poet's choice of words. Henderson, Day and Waller, 1993. Poets use diction of words not merely to express their thoughts, ideas and feelings, but also to communicate emotion precisely. The diction in a poem ranges from polite, complex, and formal to the very simple or colloquial, slangy, vulgar, or profane even. Read the poem below by John Hollander's Adam's Task that uses nonsense words. Henderson, Day and Waller, 1993. Click here for the poem. Thou paw, 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 thou glurd, thou spotted, glurd, thou white step lurching through, the high-grown brush, thou pliant-footed, implex thou awagabu. From Adam's Task by John Hollander. According to Henderson, Day and Waller, 1993, syntax refers to the structure of phrases, clauses, and sentences of a poem. Syntax contributes to the tone of a poem. It reinforces the emotion presented in the poem, such as boredom that is achieved by use of dull and repetitious clauses. Anne Sexton's Ringing the Bells uses long sentences and compounding clauses. Conjunctions like and are used to connect phrases and clauses without emphasizing one over the other. According to Henderson, Day and Waller, the syntax is almost childlike. Click here for the poem. And this is the way they ring the bells in Bedlam, and this is the bell lady, and this is the grey dress next to me, and this is the small hunched squirrel girl, and this is how the bells really sound. From Ringing the Bells by Anne Sexton. Imagery is word picture that evokes images in the minds of readers. It also plays with the five senses of readers. Henderson, Day and Waller, 1993. Imagery is probably the most powerful tool of a poet. The poem that follows is Martin Armstrong's Miss Thompson Goes Shopping. Note how it plays with readers' sense of smell. Click here for the poem. The old strange fragrance filled the air, a fragrance like garden pink, but tinged with vague medicinal stink, of camphor, soap, new sponges blent, with chloroform and violent scent. From Miss Thompson Goes Shopping by Martin Armstrong. Teachers can initiate learners into this topic using simple poems. Learners listen and say the tones of each poem. A good example of this is the use of 3 poems that portray different emotion and tone. Also, look at other exercises that follow which can be used in the classroom. Click on the links below for examples of worksheet that can be used in the classroom.